Do you know how to take these basic wheat berries that can be stored for 30 years or more and turn them into something delicious? Check this out. Preppers, I'm Kylene, and today we are going to talk about something delicious that we can make using just basic wheat berries. Now, wheat is a fantastic storage item because it will stay good in your storage room if you have stored it in a low oxygen environment, in a cool place, for 30 years or more. And that's really important. That's kind of like crazy good. So one of the things that you do need is a wheat grinder in order to make this recipe. But these are all different kinds of crackers that I've been experimenting with that are made with wheat as a basic ingredient. Now, this is something called sourdough start or natural yeast. And if you want to click the card in the corner, I'll show you a video that we created about how to make bread with the start, and we kind of go over how to feed it and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good foundation video if you haven't used the start before. In this container, there is nothing but wheat flour, water, clean water. It's not chlorinated. If you use chlorinated water, it can kill your start. And that's it, water and wheat. And you can see it's really nice and bubbly. And so this is a great way to be able to provide leavening for some of your baked goods without anything else. Now, one of the reasons why I use sourdough or natural yeast is because it reduces the gluten as it digests. So in here, what the sourdough, the wonderful start that's in here, right? The bacteria, the yeast stuff, it is all digesting the gluten that's in here, which makes it healthier for me to be able to eat because I am sensitive to gluten. Now, if you have a huge sensitivity to gluten, I would never recommend this. But if you're just like me and should avoid gluten, you know, this could really make a difference. And these two jars, they're just two different starts that I had. And do you see the rubber band and where the rubber band is? That's where the rubber band was when I filled it up. So when I do the start, I take 1 cup of flour and 1 cup of water. And when I mix it up, this is where it first is. And this is how much it's grown. Each one of these batches was made with just a slightly different recipe. This one right here, what I did, this is what a friend of mine actually taught me. So she just takes the sourdough start and she takes a piece of parchment paper, right? That's really important. And usually when I do that, I'll spray it with some type of oil, but she just spreads it as thin as she can, puts it in the oven for 10 minutes, takes it out, scores it with the pizza cutter, and then puts it back in until it's done. Now, these are really good, right? But they're not as good as some of these others. And what I did with these, well, this one, I melted a little bit of butter and I added it to the start and mixed it around, and then I used it. And the texture of the crackers is just kind of different. It feels better. It tastes a little bit better. So having just a little bit of oil to add to make your crackers can be really helpful, and it can be any kind of fat that you want. It could be butter, it could be olive oil, it could be coconut oil, it could be lard, but any type of fat just kind of helps them turn out better. Do you have to have it? No, not at all, you don't. But these two were really delicious, and this is the recipe that I'm going to show you right now. For this recipe, I am going to take 4 tablespoons of fat. In my case, this is going to be olive oil. Now, I want to put it on the bottom. I put that in this cup first because that way the sourdough start that's kind of sticky, it won't stick to the bottom. And then I'm going to take a cup of sourdough start. And you can tell, can you just see how light and fluffy and airy this is? But sometimes when you're making sourdough a lot, you don't always want to make the bread. And this is a great way to use up that start. Okay, so I've got roughly a cup in here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, the closer you can get to it, the better off you'll be. This is the cup of oats. And I'm gonna put in 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And then I'm just gonna mix it. Now, if you don't wanna use oats, you can use cornmeal, you can use any kind of flour that you want. But what this is doing, it makes it thicker because you saw how the start was just a little bit runny. Oh, and I should show you this. See how there's hardly any start left in there? That's okay, because I'm gonna put a cup of water, a cup of flour in there and mix it up, and that's all that I need to refresh my start. But anyway, you can get as creative as you want with this. You could even use bean flour. I probably wouldn't use the whole cup bean flour, but, or maybe a vegetable flour. I'd probably use 3/4 of a cup of the different flour and then 1/4 cup of the vegetable flour or the bean flour. And now with this, I'm gonna divide it into 2 batches. Because these crackers need to be really thin, right? And so if I put too much on the cookie sheet or on the baking sheet, then I'm not gonna be able to have them be really thin, and they're just not gonna turn out as well. Okay. I've divided it in 2, and I'm gonna let this rest for about 30 minutes, and I'll be right back. To save a little bit of time, I already did this one, so I just rolled it out, and this one I actually put some pizza spice on it, and then a little bit, I always like pink Himalayan salt, and I just sprinkled those on there. Then I took my pizza cutter, scored it, and then I just took a fork and stabbed each one in the middle just to keep it from puffing up. So as soon as the oven heats up, we'll put that in there. Now, this is what this little ball for the other one looks like. The dough, it's really kind of just fun. For my rolling pin, I actually need a different kind of rolling pin, the kind that you can just push like this, because I think that would work out better for this. But you're not probably gonna get these edges perfect. Just do the best that you can, right? Because it's some thick dough. Well, it's not super thick, but it's kind of sticky. I don't quite know how to describe it. But the crackers are delicious and worth it because, you know, that sourdough start, so often I'll end up wasting some of it when actually it makes really good pancakes. And the crackers is a great idea to make the crackers with them. And so if you only have wheat and water, you can make them. If you have wheat, water, and salt, they're gonna taste better. And then if you have a few different spices and some fat, it's really gonna make it taste better. And you can mix your grains to help with different nutrition. Your goal is to get this about 1/16 of an inch, but we wanna make sure that it's even. If it's not even, some areas will cook faster than others, and we don't want that. I'm gonna put just a little bit of salt, and it is easier to do this before it's back on there. And then this is everything bagel. And I just keep my spices in bulk because I cook so much. And depending on how much you want, 2 tablespoons is good, but sometimes I think it's a little bit much. Just kind of depends on how much spice you like. And with the everything bagel, I'm going to just lightly roll over it again to make sure that the spices are embedded in it and not gonna just fall off. All right, slide it over here. Score it. Actually, I'm just cutting it. Now remember, if you are just using the start without anything else, you're gonna have to cook it for 10 minutes before you score it because it seriously won't let you do that. It's just way too sticky. But because we've added that extra cup of flour and we've put the oil in it, it's much more forgiving and not as sticky. All right, and then I'm gonna just take my fork and poke the center of each of these. These will go in a 350-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm gonna make sure that I turn them halfway through, but you can tell when they're done because they're just slightly golden brown, but they're thin, so they're gonna cook pretty quickly. While that's cooking, let's go ahead and do the start. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna refresh it. You can see there's not very much in here. Most of the time, I will dump out whatever's in there, and then whatever's on the side and the bottom, that's what gets refreshed. Now, this water is it's filtered water from our fridge because we have a chlorinated water supply. And I like to go ahead and mix the water first. And that way I just make sure that that yeast start gets everywhere. Doesn't have to be perfect, but then once that's done, then I'll dump the flour in. And yeah, it's a messy process. I could make it a cleaner process, but yeah, I won't. And then what I'll do is I just put the rubber band to wherever this is so I can tell how much it's growing. And then I'm just gonna clean off the outside of this jar. And this lid is it's just a plastic lid, plastic canning lid. You can pick up anywhere, they're not very expensive. But as you can see, it's got little holes drilled into it. And that allows the start to breathe because it is living. You could just put a lid on kind of crooked, but I don't like to do that in my fridge. So this is how it looks. And I will just leave this out if I'm going to make something within the next 12 to 24 hours. If I'm not, then I just put it in the fridge because that slows down that process, and then I'll refresh it just before I'm ready to make something else. Like the night before, so that it's nice and bubbly. Something smells really good. Guess who just came home from school, and he has agreed to be my guinea pig. So this one just came out of the oven. This is the one with the pizza spice on it. And see how the crackers separate so nicely? Using the parchment paper really helps. So Ben's gonna taste each one and tell us what he thinks. And this one's hot, right? So be careful.
Okay.
He's really big into wheat, right? Whole wheat. And so this is kind of a big deal for him. The one that he's trying right now is the one that has Parmesan and garlic on it. You like that one?
Yeah, that one's really good.
Do I need to get you some water to cleanse your palate? There you go.
All right. Did I try this one yet?
No.
No.
This one is the one with everything bagel on it.
Much more crisp than the other ones.
Is it?
Was that intentional or was that just...
They're different recipes, so that's okay.
Okay.
And that one is just salt and the sourdough start. You're not as much.
Really hard.
It's really hard, huh? Okay, so that's one of the, so can we make it like that? Yes, so if you just have wheat and water and salt, you can totally make that one. But I don't find it as enjoyable as the ones if we've stored a little bit of fat and we can put some fat or some spices in them. Need to cleanse your palate again?
Sure.
Okay, and then this one only has the wheat, water, and salt, and it has a little bit of oil.
Also very hard.
Also very hard.
I don't think I like it quite as much. So, I like these three the most.
Okay, and this is interesting because each of these three had the oat flour in them. So in addition to the wheat flour, that's the one where we use the oil and the salt and the start, and then I put a cup of oat flour in it. So that sounds like it's the best recipe.
Yeah?
You rock.
So. Cool.
Thanks for trying.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got my other taste tester. We're gonna take this last batch out of the oven. Looks good. You see how beautiful those are? And they just slide right off. Now, John is going to taste test. I know we got Ben's opinion, but remember, John's the one that's always saying, if I was really hungry, I would eat it. If I didn't have anything else, I'd eat it.
If I'm hungry.
So we're talking about wheat, right? That we've made into sourdough start, and these have all been made with the sourdough start, or the natural yeast start.
Okay.
So the first one he's gonna taste, it was just sourdough on the, just sourdough on the tray with salt, nothing else.
A little bit hard.
A little bit hard.
Might break a tooth during a crisis. That could be a problem.
That could be a problem. That's exactly what Ben said. You probably need your water to cleanse your palate. We're back. Now the second one that he's going to try, let's try this one next. This one is only the sourdough start, but it has a little bit of salt in it, and then it has some oil in it too.
Not quite as hard as the previous one.
But not to die
still kind of hard.
So it'll fill your belly?
Well, I'm sure it would. It's not bad. It tastes pretty good. So, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, now he gets to move on to the good ones. Now these next few recipes, the recipe had a cup of the start, a cup of oat flour, but you could use anything like cornmeal or any other kind of flour that you wanted. It also had the oil and a little bit of salt and then some spices. This one happens to be the pizza spice.
Yeah, I like that. And it's not as hard. It's very soft.
But it's soft, but it's not, it's still a little bit crunchy, right? It's not
a little bit of a crunch.
It's not like bread-like, it's cracker-like.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Cleanse the palate. And now this one is the same recipe with everything bagel seasoning on it.
This one's a little bit crispier, but not hard, so I like the texture of this one.
Maybe I left it in the oven longer. I'm not quite sure, but that was the same batch. Don't know what I did.
It's good taste. I like it.
Okay, and the next one he's gonna try, I just put a little bit of Parmesan cheese and garlic salt on the top of it.
Good. I really like the texture and the flavor. That's really good.
Ben came over to school after the taste test. I had to like shoo him away. Like, wait, I got to finish filming this before you can eat this. So what do you think? Is it worth it for people to store wheat in their food storage in order to have something as simple as crackers?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I really like the bread from the wheat, but crackers, that's good. That's really, really good. So you've got some nutrition there and good calories. I think it's a win.
And a 30-year shelf life, right? So make sure that you check on the video that we did before on making bread from sourdough or natural yeast, because that will help you understand more about the natural yeast process. But I think this is a pretty good recipe. So for the question of the day, tell me, what is your favorite recipe to make crackers with? Or what's your favorite recipe to make anything out of your stored wheat? Comment below.
And thanks for being part of the solution.